what we're going to be talking about today, because it comes up whether or not if we're going to be actually having um quote unquote are we going to be practicing abstinence in the kingdom, or we're going to be having what they call sex in the kingdom, or not. So what we're going to do today, we're going to decipher some of the text, right? And we're going to bring it from a different way to go about answering this question. So I hope that this information touches all the ears that it's designed to touch, and it be a fruitful discussion. And y'all know how we do it. First, we do lecture format first, and then between certain stopping points, we open up the floor. So that's pretty much how we do it. All righty. So I'm going to be reading out of my Orthodox Study Bible today. So that's where we're going to be coming from. And let's get short here on the stage. The text we're going to start with is going to be in Matthew 22:23. And out of the Orthodox Study Bible, they uses the New King James Version format. All right, so Matthew 22:23. And we're going to be going through a couple of sources today. Hold on, where we at? All right, there we go. Couple of sources today. All right, so this is going to be the underlining text right here. Matthew 22:23. The same day, the Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to him and asked him. All right, y'all. This is going to be, first of all, one of the most important things that people should understand when reading this dialogue. When reading this dialogue, what a lot of people leave out, which is one of the most important things. Shalom, my brother. I see you on Facebook. Shalom. One of the most important things to get left out is the Sadducees. So he's having a conversation with the Sadducees. So let's get a little background of the Sadducees first before we dive into this abstinence or not abstinence inside of the kingdom. Let's get a little background about the Sadducees, because if you don't know what the Sadducees stood on, you're probably not really going to understand the importance of the dialogue. So we're going to go to Antiquity of the Jews, Book 18, Section 1, Chapter 1, Section 4. I'm going to read lines 16 through 17. This is found in Josephus, the book of Josephus, right? So we're going to build a little background knowledge so we can understand what's going on. So this is what it states. And if you don't know who Josephus is, he's a first century Jew. He was part of the priest. On the mother and father side, he had royalty dealing with the priesthood and etc. He started off being also a Pharisee and an Essene, so he dipped and dabbled in a lot of things of being a Jew in the first century. So he knew what they believed in, being a being a Pharisee himself and being part of the priesthood. So this is it. He says, but the doctrine of the Sadducees is this, that the souls die with the bodies, nor do they regard the observation of anything besides what the law enjoins them. For they think it is an instance of virtue to dispute with those teachers of philosophy whom they frequent. But this doctrine is received but by a few, yet by those still of the greatest dignity. But they are able to do almost nothing of themselves, for when they become magistrates, as they are unwillingly and by force sometimes obliged to be, they addict themselves to the notions of the Pharisees, because the multitude would not otherwise bear them. So what did we just find out about the Sadducees right there? They believe the souls die with the body. But that's not the only thing that we learn about the Sadducees. It says that they, it says, nor do they regard the observation of anything besides what the law enjoins them. So, in other words, the Sadducees only dealt with Torah, the first five books of Moses. So, you have all of the Tanakh that they knew about, but the Sadducees did not deal with the Tanakh like that. So you got all of the Davids and Solomons and Psalms. You got all of this information, the Isaiah, the prophets. You have all of this information. The Sadducees wasn't dealing with it like that. They was only dealing with the law. Go to War of the Jews. This is going to book 2. Let me get to it real fast. Book 2, section 14. I'm going to read lines 164 through 165. It says, but the Sadducees are those that compose the second order and take away faith entirely and suppose that God is not concerned in our doing or not doing what is evil. And they say that the act what is good or what is evil is at men's own choice, and that the one or the other belongs so to everyone, that they may act as they please. They also take away the belief of the immortal duration of the soul and the punishments and rewards in Hades. So, in other words, we have with the Sadducees, they don't believe in fate. They said the Lord is not dealing with no fate. He allows people to be people. If you're going to be wicked, you're going to be wicked. If you're going to be righteous, you're going to be righteous. And if you whatever you choose, the afterlife is nothing's going to happen to you in the afterlife. So if a person wants to be wicked, hold on one second. So if the person wants to be wicked, he can be wicked his whole life and nothing is going to happen to him. In the afterlife, if a person wants to be righteous, he can be right. Nothing is going to happen to him in the afterlife because the soul dies with the body. So understand, and they got this way because they only dealt with Torah, the first five books of Moses. So as time progressed and more information came out, they wasn't dealing with that. They only want to deal with what Moses had, strict Torah followers. So once we're talking about the conversation that Christ had with the Sadducees, understand the Sadducees are only looking at the first five book of Moses in order to draw all of their information. So when they're having a dialogue with Christ cannot go outside of the first five books of Moses in order to explain to them. He can't go to the prophets. He can't go to a lot more of those outside sources because the Sadducees were not dealing with those sources. So understand the conversation that he's having with the Sadducees right now, it's a war of what the Torah actually teaches. So let me say it again. What Christ and the Sadducees are finna have, this dialogue, it's not a war of the Tanakh. It's not a war of the New Testament. It's not a war of the outside books. They finna have a war. They finna share swords and etc. about the true meaning of the Torah. So through the Sadducees' eyes, there's no place for resurrection inside of the Torah. We're not talking about the Tanakh. We're not talking about the prophets, because you guys can quickly go to Isaiah, Daniel, Ezekiel. Y'all can go to all these places and show the resurrection. No, they finna have a war of Torah, and in their eyes, there is no room for resurrection inside of the 5 book of Moses, and Christ is fin to show them without a shadow of a doubt that the resurrection itself is inside of Torah, which they believed in. So that's what's going on first. So let's continue in the book of Matthew. All right, so we're going to read Matthew. I'm going to start at 23, and I'm going to go down to verse 28 now. It says, the same day the Sadducees who say there is no resurrection came to him and asked him, saying, Teacher, Moses, you see how they're talking about Moses. Moses said that if a man dies having no children, his brother shall marry his wife and raise up offspring for his brother. Now, there were with us 7 brothers. It shows you how the Jews loved the number 7. It was one of their spiritual numbers. And raised up, now there was with us 7 brothers. The first died after he had married, and having no offspring, led his wife to his brother. Likewise, the second also, and the third, even to the 7th. Last of all, the woman died also. Therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife of the 7 will she be? For they all had her. So now, they don't even believe in the resurrection. But what's going on here, from their understanding and reading of Torah, they haven't found any passages dealing with the resurrection. And you can tell by the tone of what's being said here how the resurrection was being taught in the 1st century. The resurrection was being taught that people was going to come back from the dead and continue their lives. How do we know that? How can we draw that conclusion? Because in verse 28 it says, therefore in the resurrection, whose wife of the 7 will she be? For they all had her. And according to Torah, she can't have multiple husbands. So that was out. That was taken away. Now you can clearly see how the resurrection was being taught in the 1st century. A person dies, they come back to life and continue their lives as normal. That's what was being, you can tell that's the tone of it. So let's find out what they are actually talking about. Remember, these guys only dealt with Torah, they didn't deal with the Tanakh. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy 25, 5 and 6. This is what it says coming out of my Orthodox Study Bible, which it will be the Greek version translated into the English, one of the older codexes, older than the Masoretic that we have in our KJV. All right, so now this is what it says. Deuteronomy 25, I'm going to read 5 and 6. If brothers dwell together, and one of them dies and has no son, the widow of the dead man shall not be married to a stranger outside the family. Her husband's brother shall go in to her, take her as his wife, and dwell with her. Then it shall be the firstborn son she bears shall be named by the name of his dead brother. It didn't say daughter, but son, that his name may not be blotted out of Israel. So, what was the first thing that was dealing with this? For a person's name not to be blotted out of Israel. The only way a name is blotted out of Israel is if descendants stop occurring, the line dies off, therefore the name is blotted out of Israel. So this is what's going on here. In the Torah, in order for a name not to be blotted out of Israel, there was a law created that said a man should take his brother's widow if they don't have a child and raise up. And let me make sure. It doesn't say child, it says son. So if he has a daughter, it doesn't matter. It says one of them dies and has no son. So this is things dealing with the son, because sonship deals with inheritance and etc., which we're going to see later on. But the point was going for there to be a forever inheritance inside of Israel and for a name not to be blotted out. I believe this is called the like levirate marriage. This is just the law that Israel had. And the Sadducees went to this specific area. I guess that this was trapping up the Pharisees and whoever else. I guess they couldn't answer this question. That's why they were so proudful to come to Christ with this question. Now, I want to segue just a little bit, right? Because this is talking about the levirate marriage, and this is why they brought Christ to this one out of Torah, because the way that the levirate marriage is set up and their understanding of the resurrection, the way that both were set up, they never could coexist. And the resurrection, if life continues like it was supposed to after the resurrection, by default, the woman would be in idolatry, having all of these husbands. Now they will be going against the law of God, against Torah. This would be a huge contradiction. So you guys believe in this resurrection, but if this scenario plans out like we said, we have a major contradiction here. So now, let me show you also the importance of that law. They went to that law because that law was very important. But let me show you another instance inside the Bible that gets overlooked about the importance of that law. I have a book here called Eusebius Ecclesiastical History. Ecclesiastical history. And what he did, he decided to take upon himself to write down all of the information that was handed down throughout all the centuries to these quote unquote church fathers until he got to him. And he said, I'm going to compile all the information inside of one document or inside of one house, and I'm going to distribute it amongst the church. So this is what he wrote about the history dealing with Israel and this same Levirate marriage law. We're going to go to chapter 7. This is what it states. It says the alleged discrepancy in the Gospels in regard to the genealogy of Christ. So many people, you guys, everyone know this. Once you look at Matthew's genealogy, you look at Luke's genealogy records, then you start comparing them. You say, hey, there's definitely contradictions here, a whole bunch of contradictions. So now he's trying to address what actually is going on through the information that was handed down to him. So we're going to see how important this Levirate marriage law was. So I'm just going to read. I'm going to read lines 1 and 2, and I'm going to read line 10. It says, Matthew and Luke in their Gospels have given us the genealogy of Christ differently, and many suppose that they are at variance with one another, since as consequence, every believer in ignorance of the truth has been zealous to invent some explanation which shall harmonize the two passages. Permit us to subjoin the account of the matter which has come down to us, and which was given by Africanus, who was mentioned by us just above in his epistles to Aristides, where he discusses the harmony of the gospel genealogies. After refuting the opinions of others as forced and deceptive, he gives the account which he had received from tradition in these words. So, in other words, this is all tradition that was handed down throughout the church. How the gospel, the genealogies in Matthew and Luke, is not actually in variance, but they harmonize together. So, we're going to find out what information, what tradition he received. All right, so here's line 2. For whereas the names of the generations were reckoned in Israel, either according to nature or according to law. According to nature, by the succession of legitimate offspring, and according to law, whenever another raised up a child to the name of a brother dying childless. For because a clear hope of resurrection was not yet given, they had a representation of the future promise by a kind of mortal resurrection, in order that the name of the one deceased might be perpetuated. So, in other words, he's saying that they did not have the spiritual understanding of the resurrection yet. So, a mortal resurrection was kind of invented, which was the shadow of the spiritual resurrection. Everything in the law was supposed to be a shadow of the truth. So, the mortal resurrection was if a person, just so a lineage cannot die off, a brother had to go in and continue the lineage if that his brother and his wife was childless. In other words, a name could never be blotted out of Israel if this was done correctly. So now he's stating that there's two things going on compared to Matthew and Luke. One is a natural genealogy. The other is the genealogy that dies. The brother goes in and wed wife, that widow, in order to raise up child to his brother, so his name won't be cut off. So now let's go to section 10. Hence, the genealogy traced through him will not be rendered void, which the evangelist Matthew in his enumeration gives thus: Jacob begot Joseph. But Luke, on the other hand, says, who was the son, as was supposed. For this he also adds, of Joseph, the son of Eli, the son of Melchi. For he could not more clearly express the generation according to the law, and the expression he begot, he has omitted in his genealogical express the generation according to law. And the expression, hold on, my bad. And the expression he begot, he has omitted in his genealogical table up to the end, tracing the genealogy back to Adam, the son of God. This interpretation is neither incapable of proof, nor is it an idle conjecture. So, in other words, he said Luke's genealogy dealt with the law, bringing child to brother because brother died childless. That's why his is written like that compared to Matthew's, who Matthew's was going by nature. So they're not separate genealogies, they're the same genealogies. One is for nature, the other is for the law. So once you understand that perspective, that Luke was using this same levirate marriage law that's said in Torah, you understand how important it was for people to understand this law and the purpose of the law. So when Christ and the Sadducees are speaking on this law, it's something of importance for a name to not be blotted out of Israel and etc. So I just wanted to show um, how the levirate marriage in Luke was the same one that the Sadducees believed in. So to show you that they harmonize, how Luke is not different of understanding how Torah works, in other words. So now, because I know a lot of people say that it's totally a difference, but it's not. So let's go to, I'm going to read two more, then I'm going to open it up to see if anybody wanted to say anything before I continue. All right, so now, this is Matthew 22 and 29. It states, Jesus answered and said to them, "You are mistaken, not knowing the scriptures nor the power of God." So he told them, he's not talking about the Tanakh here. He's talking about Torah. He told them that they were in error. The only thing that they dealt with was Torah. And he told them that they were in error, not knowing the Torah nor the power of God. Remember, they didn't believe that there was no resurrection. So they asking him, about all these people dying, coming back to life. This is carnality right here. Someone physically dies, someone physically rises up, then they died physically. Who wife would she be physically at the resurrection? So Christ is now saying, you guys error in knowing the scriptures and the power of God. So they did not understand how the Torah addressed the resurrection, the same resurrection found in the Tanakh, the same resurrection found in the New Testament, quote unquote, what Christ taught. They wasn't teaching anything new, but the Sadducees did not understand this. So I'm going to read the next verse. I'm going to read it from each section, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and then I will open up and see anybody got anything to say before I continue. So now it says, now this is it, verse 30. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels of God in heaven. So if you don't know about angels of God in heaven, you would totally not get what he is talking about. If you don't know how the angels of God operated inside of heaven, this whole thing, but he told them, and look what he told them. For in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels of God in heaven. But the Sadducees believed that the soul died with the body. So now, if the souls died with the body, how are they like angels if they know angels are supposed to be heavenly? So now, can angels die? Let's continue to read. Let's go to Mark now. Because Christ is hidden with something. And don't forget, Christ is not leaving Torah. He's not leaving out of the elements of Torah. So what Christ is telling them right now has to be found inside of Torah. So that's Matthew 22, verse number 30. Now we can go to, hold on one sec. Let's go to Mark. We're going to read 12, 24 through 25. This is what the Bible states. It says, Jesus answered and said to them, Are you not therefore mistaken, because you do not know the scriptures, nor the power of God? For when they rise from the dead, see, Mark says a little bit different than Matthew. For when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like the angels in heaven. So you see that right there? So now, for when they rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like the angels in heaven. So the resurrection, them rising from the dead, when they go through that process, they neither marry nor are given into marriage. But we're going to see what all this means, right? Because where is Christ having to choose his words from? Only the Torah. This is only coming from the Torah. So Luke 20 now. Let's go to Luke 20, 34 through 36. It states, Jesus answered and said to them, the sons of this age marry and are given in marriage. Listen to that word. They marry or are given into marriage. But those who are counted worthy to attain that age and the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage, nor can they die anymore, for they are equal to the angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. Now, Luke just dropped a big bombshell right there. You know, Matthew said it one way, Mark said it another way, but Luke, he just dropped a bombshell that a lot of people overlook. A lot of people overlook. Listen to what he said once again. We're going to read 35 and 36. But those who are counted worthy to attain that age and the resurrection from the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage, nor can they die any more. So they died before, but they can't die anymore. Why can't they die? For they are equal to the angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. Remember, all of this information is coming from Torah. So there's got to be a place in Torah about someone marrying and giving into marriage. There has to be a place in Torah when someone was equal to angels, called a son of God, and being a son of the resurrection. That has to be somewhere in Torah in order for Christ to be pulling from people who only follow Torah. So now let's give you just a little clue. You go to Luke chapter 3. Luke 3, verse number 38. Listen to what it says. The son of Enosh, the son of Seth, the son of Adam, the son of God. Hold on, so let's go back to Luke 20. What did Luke 20 say? Since we're only using the Torah, it stated they will not die anymore, for they will be equal to the angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. Luke 3:28, Adam was a son of God. So you have to ask yourself a question. Was Adam also a son of the resurrection inside of the Torah? If the answer is yes, then by default, they're speaking on something similar to what Adam went through and how Adam became a son of God and etc. So this whole thing originated in have more. So this at this point, I'm putting it up. See if anybody got anything that they want to say before I move on to my next step.
What was that? Luke 20 what?
That's Luke 20 verses 34 through 36. All right. Does anybody got anything they want to add to it before I continue on? And make sure you ping people if you guys don't mind. All right, I will continue then. So now notice back in Matthew, right? It stated, so Matthew 22, let's look at 30. For in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like the sons of God in heaven. So think about that wording right there, right? It says, they neither marry nor are given in marriage. Now, doesn't that language not sound familiar in another dialogue that Christ had dealing with the Torah? So, we're going to go over into Matthew 24. We're going to read 36 through 38. Matthew 24, 36 through 38. Listen to what Matthew says. But of that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. So you see how the angels right there was invoked. But let's keep going. Verse 37. But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be. But I want to just concentrate on 38. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. Verse 30 in Matthew 22. For in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels of God. Matthew 24, 38. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until Noah entered into the ark. So you can clearly see that in Matthew 22, in the resurrection, they're going to be doing opposite of what was happening in Matthew 24 in the days of Noah. But remember, we cannot go outside of the parameters of Torah dealing with the Sadducees. So at one point, there was individuals marrying and being given into marriage, and at another point, when this new age come, these individuals ain't gonna be marrying or given into marriage. So they're gonna be doing opposite of what happened in the days of Noah. So in Matthew 24, let's find out who the they are, because Christ said, for in the days of Noah, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. Who is the they? So we have to go back to Torah to find out who the they are that was marrying and giving into marriage. And in Matthew 22, Christ said, for in the resurrection, they neither marry or are given into marriage. Who are the they? But are like the angels of God. Who are the they? Who's all these theys that Christ is talking about? You have to know Torah to understand how the conversation is flowing with the Sadducees. So we're going to venture back into Torah to grasp what Christ is talking about. So we go to Genesis chapter 6. We're going to read verses 1 through 2 and verse 4. It says, now it came to pass that men began to exist in great numbers on the earth, and daughters was born to them. So when the sons of God saw the daughters of men were beautiful, they took wives for themselves all they chose. They took wives for themselves all they chose. So when Christ stated before the flood, they were marrying and given into marriage. Here in Genesis 6, it clearly tells us the sons of God were the ones marrying and given into marriage. The sons of God were. But hold on, didn't Christ say that they were supposed to be like sons of God? How they're supposed to be, they're not going to marry nor be given into marriage, but they're going to be like the sons of God. But here we have the sons of God marrying and being given into marriage. So obviously, one sons of God is doing something that they're not supposed to. So let's keep reading. Let's read verse number 4. Now there were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men of old, men of renown. So now you ask the person, okay, so the sons of God right here, they slept with the daughters of men, whatever that's supposed to mean, and they had children. And obviously, this wasn't a good thing because the flood came a little afterwards, right? And now Christ is using what story in Torah can Christ use about them being like angels and not marrying or giving into marriage? He's going back to this story and telling a scenario this is going to be opposite of what happened here in Genesis 6. So now, let me show you why Genesis 6 was actually a bad thing, besides what you guys know about all the bloodshed, of course. But let's look at the motivation of these sons of God. Now, there's something called that a lot of people don't like. I don't know why. It's called the Book of Enoch. And the reason why people don't like it is because people love sci-fi channel stuff. They love to think how spiritual the Jews were, and they don't understand that the Jews themselves were a spiritual people, but the spiritual help it usually represented something carnal. And something carnal usually represented something spiritual. So there was two sides of the same coin. And what people do, they overlook the carnal meaning behind what's going on in the book of Enoch, and they only look at the spiritual meaning. So now all of a sudden, no, Enoch is about angels coming down, sleeping with women, and then they having these giants, the tall of skyscrapers, and we know that that's impossible. I don't like the book of Enoch, blah, 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 this and that. Meanwhile, the Jews wrote the book of Enoch, and the Jews are telling you what they thought about what Moses created. So they're using some of this passed down information, some of this mythos and legends that they have amongst themselves, and they wrote it down for us to see. So now, I'm going to show you what we overlook in the book of Enoch, so we can actually, and then I'm going to move on so we can actually understand what's happening in Genesis 6, and then it actually goes together. So now, let me show you guys what's happening. This is Enoch 1. I'm going to read verses 2, 3, and 4 just to show you what people normally overlook when we're talking about Enoch. This is Enoch 1. And he took up his parable and said, Enoch, a righteous man, whose eyes were opened by God, saw the vision of the Holy One in heavens, which the angel showed me, and from them I heard everything, and from them I understood as I saw, but not for this generation, but for a remote one, which is for to come. Concerning the elect, I said, and took up my parable concerning them. So Enoch then clearly told us that he's going to be talking about parabolic stuff and stuff seen in visions. And for some reason, it doesn't matter if he said this is all about things he saw in visions and his parables. For some reason, people overlook that and act like that they don't understand what a parable means. It's a story meant to teach a spiritual lesson, of course. They overlook that stuff and try to make it literal. And then when it gets so literal, then it's sci-fi. So now, let's look at what's happening dealing with this whole scenario in Genesis 1. This is what the Jews themselves thought. So now, I'm gonna read first Enoch 6. I'm gonna read 1 and 2. It says, and it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied, and that in those days was born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, remember that word right there, everyone. And the angels, the children of heaven, remember that, angels, children of heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said one to another, come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. So the motivation behind what the angels did was supposed to be lust and them wanting children. What's happening in Matthew 22? Why is this woman getting all of these husbands in the first place? For children, for her to produce a child for her beloved or her husband that died. So just all about producing offspring. So now, let's first Enoch 12. I'm going to read 4 and 5. Enoch, the scribe of righteousness, go declare to the watchers of the heaven, who have left the high heaven, the holy eternal place, and have defiled themselves with women, and have done as the children of earth do, and have taken unto themselves wives. So what did they do? They descended from their heavenly state, and they defiled themselves with the women, becoming children of the earth per se, acting like they are children of the earth instead of children of heaven. All of this is going to make sense in a minute. Ye have wrought great destruction on the earth, and ye shall have no peace nor forgiveness of sin, inasmuch as they delight themselves in their children. See, the motivation was children. All right. So now, first Enoch 15, I'm just going to read 1 through 6, and then we're going to go to Josephus so we can actually find out who these angels were, who these children of heaven were. See, a lot of people can't tell you who the children of heaven, who these angels, who these sons of God were in Genesis 6. I'm going to show you who they were. And then you can understand more what's going on. So this is first Enoch 15, 1 through 6. And he answered and said to me, I heard his voice. Fear not, Enoch, thou righteous man and scribe of righteousness. Approach hither and hear my voice. And go, say to the watchers of heaven, who have sent thee to intercede for them. You should not intercede for men, and not you should intercede for men and not men for you. The word intercede right there, that's something that the high priest was supposed to do for mankind. They were supposed to be a mediator. So hopefully we're finished find out what's going on here. Verse 3. Wherefore have you left the high, holy, and eternal heaven, and laid with women, and defiled yourselves with the daughters of men, and taken to yourself wives, and done like the children of earth, and begotten giants as your sons? And though you were holy, listen to how he described these angels. You were holy, spiritual, living the eternal life, and you have defiled yourself with the blood of women, and have begotten children with the blood of flesh. And as the children of men have lusted after flesh and blood, as those also do who die and perish, and have lusted after flesh and blood, as those also do who die and perish. So you can see the words we have here is dealing with lust and children. All of these things. Hope everyone understand this is a theme in Torah. Verse 5. Therefore have I given them wives, also that they might impregnate them and beget children by them, that thus nothing might be wanting to them on earth. But you were formerly spiritual, living the eternal life, and immortal for all generations of the world. And therefore I have not appointed wives for you, for as for the spiritual ones of the heaven, in heaven is their dwelling. So, in other words, he's telling them, you guys were in a heavenly abode. Y'all had eternal life. Y'all were not lusting after flesh and blood. Y'all was living the spiritual life, and in heaven was your dwelling. This is a parable. This isn't meant to be taken literal. This is a parable. So now, let's find out who these sons of God actually is, so we can get the understanding of what's happening in the resurrection for these people not to be marrying and giving into marriage. Because who were they marrying? Children of the earth, not children of the heaven. They were stepping outside of their heavenly element, and because of their lust, being drawn to the earthly elements, and it causing them to die in the process. Hopefully you guys see the comparison of what's going on there, but let's find out actually who these angels of God actually is, so we can see what story Christ is piggybacking off of to understand how the resurrection actually works. So now we're going to go to the Antiquity of the Jews by Josephus, Book 1, Chapter 3, Section 1. We're going to read lines 72 and 73. All right, everyone, brace yourself, because you're going to find out exactly who these sons of God were. Now,
Say it again, where you reading from?
this is Josephus, Antiquity of the Jews, Book 1, and it's line 72 and 73 if you got the hard copy, by William Whiston. And this is what it states. It says, now this posterity of Seth, okay, if anyone don't know who Seth is, Seth was this posterity of Seth continued to esteem God as Lord of the universe, and to have an entire regard to virtue for 7 generations. You see how they love the number 7. But in process of time, they were perverted. Who was? The 7 generations after Seth. His lineage. Seth's line. It was good for 7 generations, but now we're finna have a change. But in the process of time, they were perverted and forsook the practices of their fathers, and did neither pay those honors to God which were appointed them. So, according to Josephus, Seth's lineage had honors to God that was appointed to them to do. Now, anyone that knows how the Torah works, knows how Israel works, what things was appointed to Israel to do for God, who was in charge of that. We all should know this. The priesthood was in charge of the things, doing the things that paid honor to God, quote unquote, dealing with the sacrifices and etc. The sacrifices, the oblation, all of these things that was used to pay honor to God, that was appointed to them. This is what the priesthood was doing. So we have priestly duties, not starting with Melchizedek, not starting with the Levites who was after him, but we can actually see it dealing with Abraham. I mean, sorry, not Abraham, dealing with Cain and Abel when they was doing these sacrifices. These are all things that priests do. So we are talking about priestly stuff, but let's keep going. It says, and did neither pay those honors to God which were appointed them, nor had they any concern to do justice towards men. But for what degree of zeal they had formerly shown for virtue, they now showed by their actions a double degree of wickedness, whereby they made God to be their enemy. For many angels of God kept company with women and begat sons that proved unjust and despisers of all that was good, on the account of the confidence they had in their own strength. For the tradition is that these men did what resembled the acts of those whom the Grecians call giants. So, first of all, Josephus let it be known that this was the posterity of Seth. Second of all, he made sure that you understood that the angels that Moses was talking about was actually the children of Seth. And just in case you missed it again, he made sure he called them men again. So first he said they neither paid honors to God, and he said, by their actions a double degree of wickedness, whereby they made God be their enemy. For many angels of God kept company with women and begat sons. And then it said that these men did what resembled the acts of whom the Grecians call giants. So it's letting it be known that these are all dealing with men. Men. So the angels of God were actually the children of Seth. Let me say it again. The angels of God, in Genesis chapter 6, the sons of God that slept with the daughters of men, the angels of God, they actually were indeed, in fact, the sons of Seth. But let me keep reading in Josephus so we can hit this next one. It says, but Noah was very uneasy at what they did, and being displeased at their conduct, persuaded them to change their disposition and their acts for the better. But seeing that they did not yield to him, but were slaves to their wicked pleasures, he was afraid they would kill him, together with his wife and children, and those that they had married. So he departed out of the land. So here you can clearly see how Josephus left out how the sons of God came into the daughters of men and etc. Because Josephus is actually telling you what that stuff actually meant. It's actually dealing with the people of the priesthood that was following following, I will say the word at the time, but anyway, they was following the heavenly worship system. They left the heavenly worship system to go frequent with people doing earthly things, and that caused the world to become corrupt because the world no longer had a mediator. They no longer had those to intercede for righteousness and to the wicked and etc. The whole thing was brought to naught. So when we're talking about when Christ said they're going to be like the angels, and etc., he's talking about the state before they descended to sleep with the daughters of men, before they descended into that earthly state. He's actually going through the same thing what happened with Adam when Adam ascended and then had to descend because of his actions. So let's find out what I'm talking about here, and then I will open it up again, and then I will do my last three verses before I call it quits. So this is what I'm actually talking about here. You can find this in the book of Enoch. You can also find this in Torah dealing with Adam. So once you go to 1 John 2:15 through 17, it says, "Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life." This is exactly what happened in Genesis chapter 6. This is what happened with those children of self who they called the sons of God, which would have been that first priesthood. This is exactly what happened. They gave over to the lust of the flesh. They saw the daughters of men and they wanted to lay with them. They gave over to the lust of the eyes. Same thing. They saw the daughters of men and wanted to lay with them. They gave over to the pride of life. They wanted to have children because of these worldly wants, and all of that stuff threw them into chaos. And that's why it says, "And is not of the Father, but is of the world." If a person does that, the Father is not in them, because they are partaking of the world. So in the resurrection, a person has left the world and went into eternal life. And when you leave the world and go into eternal life, you're not in a process of those that was marrying and giving into marriage, because the reason why they was marrying and giving into marriage was because they had the love of the world. That's what caused them to be marrying and giving into marriage. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life. That's the things that caused them to leave their heavenly state. This isn't talking about saints having sex with each other and creating babies. This is talking about a person, mainly the sons of the resurrection, which would be the new priesthood. This is saying that those individuals would no longer partake in the actions of anything incorruptible. So if you want to have something corruptible, something that you can actually compare it to, the only thing you can use in that scenario using Torah would have to be sex and blood, sex. That's the only thing you pretty much can use dealing with corruptible and this marriage and etc. So it makes sense why he would use that story. But the point is that they were not to partake in these in this type of behavior once they are resurrected from that state, that dead state. So he's saying that they will not do what happened in Genesis chapter 6, but they would do what Adam did before he transgressed. Or you can say that they would do what the children of self did before they transgressed. So Let me read First John 3, 1 through 3, and I will open it up again before I finish. So this is First John 3, 1 through 3, real fast. It says, Behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called children of God. Is that not what they wanted to be in the resurrection? They will be like sons of God. Therefore, the world does not know him because Therefore, the world does not know us because it did not know him. Beloved, now we are children of God, and it has not been yet revealed what we shall be, but we know that when he is revealed, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And everyone who has this hope in him purifies himself, just as he is pure. So we have this purification process dealing with this faith in Christ. These individuals are no longer defiled and etc. They are like sons of God. They are not marrying or given into marriage, because that would be in the story in Torah, that's equivalent to be given over unto that earthly lust. So understand the what he's trying to say there, and not the words as face value. It's actually what's being taught there. All right. So now I will open it up, see if anybody want to say anything before I finish, and thank everyone for listening in so far. Does anyone have anything? All right. Am I still picking up? Can someone tell me?
Yep, you picking up.
Hello?
Yeah, I hear.
Yes,
I
sir.
hear you. Yeah.
I bet. All right. Well, if no one has anything to say, anyone in the audience, just raise your hand. We'll bring you up on stage.
Hello.
Um, if
Hello.
any questions in the back chat, y'all let me
Hello.
know.
Hello.
All right. So let's get ready to end this. All right. So now let's go to, and we're just going to look a little bit more about marriage in the first place, because they were saying, remember, Christ was like, they're not going to be married.
Hello.
And I already found out one of the reasons for marriage.
It sound. It sound. It sound like somebody saying something, but they real low. Do you hear 'em? Can you hear me? Whoever that
Yeah,
is talking, we can barely hear you.
he going back, come back in. All right, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me now?
All right, bet. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I was talking that whole time. Nobody could ever hear me. All right, I'm good though.
All right, go ahead, brother.
No, I was just telling you that. Yeah, you could be heard. That's the crazy part. I was just telling you. Yeah, I can hear you, but you couldn't hear me.
Yes, sir, indeed. All right, well, I'm finna get ready to wrap it up. All right, so now we didn't find out about the marriage, right? So one of the things is dealing with marriage for a name not to be blotted out of Israel. But let's look at another one. Numbers 36. We're gonna read verses 5 through 9. It says, Then Moses commanded the children of Israel through the ordinance of the Lord, saying, Thus speak to the tribe of the sons of Joseph. This is the word the Lord ordered concerning the daughters of Zelophehad. Hopefully I said it right. Saying, Let them marry whom they think best, but they may marry only within their father's tribe. So the inheritance for the children of Israel shall not go around from tribe to tribe, because each of the sons of Israel shall be attached to the inheritance of his father's tribe. And every daughter who enters upon an inheritance in any tribe of the children of Israel shall marry someone from her father's tribe, that each of the sons of Israel may possess his paternal inheritance. Thus, no inheritance shall go around from one tribe to another, but each of the sons of Israel shall be attached to his own inheritance. So we can clearly see here that marriage also dealt with inheritance. So we have a marriage that's dealing with a type of resurrection, and we have a marriage dealing with inheritance based off of the law. So if so you can actually say the opposite, right? So if a person was not married, uh, they really could not be looking for an eternal name in Israel. They would not really have like this is dealing with one married to a man and etc. There would really not be any security. So we have no marriage, no inheritance, no security, no mortal resurrection, and etc. So you can clearly see, according to Numbers, marriage itself wasn't really dealing with quote unquote sex per se. It was all about the benefits of being married, like an inheritance, like security, like that mortal resurrection, that the continuation of a name, and etc. So Christ is letting it be known that in the resurrection that's spoken of in Torah, that these things right here wasn't really the point behind the resurrection, right? He was like, in the resurrection that they're talking about, that Torah is talking about, a person is not concentrating on these things, neither are the Lord really concentrating on these things, these carnal things right here. He's concentrating on more of the spiritual application. So I just went here to show another aspect of what marriage was used for, and how Christ is trying to make a distinction between what marriage was all about compared to what the resurrection was all about, because they're looking at the marriage aspect and that mortal resurrection to try to dispute against this resurrection that they've been hearing about, that they know is impossible if if a physical body is coming out of the ground. They know that resurrection is impossible. So they thought they had something. So Christ is actually showing them that in Torah, a lot of things was happening that they were overlooking. Like, for instance, they're overlooking how there was a resurrection in Genesis, in Moses, and they're overlooking how their resurrection was actually more of a spiritual resurrection in the first place, and it wasn't about dead bodies coming out of the ground. Neither was it about this material or this carnal possession or inheritance given, and etc. So before I ramble on more, let me read this again, and I'm gonna actually show it, and then we'll be done. So let me go through the things. Matthew 22, I'm going to read 29 through 33. It says, Jesus answered and said to them, "You are mistaken, not knowing the scriptures nor the power of God. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like the angels of God in heaven. But concerning the resurrection of the dead, have you not read what was spoken to you by God, saying, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. God is not the God of the dead, but of the living." And when the multitude heard this, they was astonished at his teaching. So where is that coming from? Let me see if I can find it real fast. Just I think that was part of, hold on. Because I want to go to where he was quoting that from. If anybody know it, y'all can actually say it also. I know it's in Torah when he said the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Is that Exodus? Hold on. Let me see if I can find it real fast. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right, that's Exodus 6. Hold on one second. Yep, Exodus 3, verse number 14 and 15. Then God said to Moses, I am the existing one. He also said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, the existing one sent me to you. Moreover, God said to Moses again, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, sent me to you. This is my name forever and my memorial to all generations. So Christ actually quoted that from the Torah also, because the Sadducees only dealt with the Torah. So he used that also in the Torah to show that the resurrection indeed was true. How can he be the God of Abraham, who at that time was already dead, and the God of Isaac? How can he be the God of Abraham and Isaac? I don't think Jacob was dead at this time, but hold on, let me see here. Yes, Jacob would have been dead at the time of the Exodus. It's a lot of things that they do with some of this from ancient Jewish literature, so I have to look it up just to be sure. But I am sure that Abraham and Isaac was dead. So how could he be the God of Abraham and Isaac if the resurrection was not true? How can he be the God of dead if all things living are unto him? And we can actually find that in Luke 20, I believe. Let me just go there. Let's see here. Luke 20, verse number, let's read 36. Nor can they die anymore, for they are equal to the angels and are sons of God, being sons of the resurrection. But even Moses showed in the burning bush passage that the dead are raised when he called the Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. For he is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for all live to him. So, we can clearly see that point right there. He could not be calling himself the God of someone who was already dead, because these individuals actually lived to him, for him, and etc. So Christ is using the Torah to teach these Sadducees, these people that only believed in the Torah, that the resurrection indeed is found inside of Torah. But the resurrection found inside of Torah was dealing more with the priesthood. It was dealing more with the passages he's using around at Genesis 6. This is dealing with the sons of God representing the priest, as well as Adam being the son of God. He would represent the first priest. But let's go to the last resurrection theme, and then we can get ready to end it. Genesis chapter 2, verses 6 and 8, the first resurrection found in Torah. But a fountain came up from the ground and watered the whole face of the earth. Then God formed man out of the dust from the ground. He was dead. And breathed in his face the breath of life. And man became a living soul. That's the first resurrection right there. Then the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Edom, and there he put the man he formed. So the first resurrection right there would actually be inside of Genesis. We can see parallels also in Genesis 6, when these sons of God, who would pretty much represent sort of like an Adam, when these sons of God, when they were supposed to be doing the heavenly things, and they fell also into the lust of the world and etc. So the whole point was, Christ stated, in the new age it was going to be a new creation, and inside of this new creation, the sons of God, the people who became like the sons of God, they was not going to be marrying nor given into marriage, but they was going to be equal to the angels of heaven, just like the children of self was, and they indeed will continue in that heavenly abode, that heavenly state, not marrying or given into marriage, which is equivalent, is equal to saying that they was given over into the lust of the world, aka making a covenant with death via the lust of the world. And Christ was saying that was not going to occur anymore. So he's not talking about sex or none of that stuff. He was actually talking about more spiritual things using the material that they only believed in. Now, if they used the Tanakh, he would have been able to use the prophets also. But since they only believed in Torah, he only used the Torah to explain to them their misunderstanding of the resurrection. Thank you all for listening in. Elvin Israel from the Garden Ministries. Make sure you check out the website, www.thegarden-ministries.com. You can go to the YouTube channel, AOSD-Chandler, stand for Assembly of Sound Doctrine. You can go to RPK Resurrection Prophecy and Kingdom. You see the RPK up here on the stage with me, where we're all instructors and we produce information on it. And you can also go to SF Wisdom, stands for Snake Fighting Wisdom, SF Wisdom on YouTube. Then we have the Garden Ministries. We're starting that YouTube page. We have a book on Amazon, The Circumcision and Uncircumcision of Genesis 1, Mysteries of the Garden Revealed. Let me say it again. The Circumcision and Uncircumcision of Genesis 1, Mystery of the Garden Revealed. That's available on Amazon. Thank everyone for listening in. And this will be the time that we're open up the room. If anybody got anything else they want to say or add to discussion before we pray out. Thank you all for listening. This is Elvin Israel, one of the instructors.
Anybody in the audience got anything to add? Questions, comments? We definitely open to hear anybody else's view. Raise your hand. Welcome up. Welcome up. Uh, any comments, questions?
Yeah, I just want to say that obviously this was a wonderful edification, wonderful class. You brought out some things that I didn't even consider to going back to all the way back in Genesis, and you really broke down the the views that these specific people had and why the Messiah spoke the way he did. And it's just another reminder to not take things for face value when you're reading scripture, especially when it comes to when the Messiah was speaking and answering questions. Like my mind is actually kind of blown right now.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that you were able to be edified. We have, and I know this might be a shameless plug. We have actually have a book out breaking down a lot of Genesis. So you can get it on Amazon. It's the Mysteries of the Garden Unveiled. Well, basically, it's the circumcision and uncircumcision of Genesis, the Mysteries of the Garden Unveiled. You can find that on Amazon. Okay,
Oh yeah, put it in the chat if you want to, so I can check it out.
sure. Alvin, can you do me a favor and drop that in the chat, or anybody down there, D? Anybody, if you can drop that in the chat, please.
Also, I was sorry earlier. I was asking if this replay is gonna stay up.
Yes, 100%.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And what I would do, I would also back check you some of the YouTube pages I was talking about, so you can like if you want to, you can subscribe to them because we let them stay up here, but just in case something happened, we'll also have them on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah. Can you send us a link for your YouTube page too?
Most definitely.
All right. Thank you so much. Shalom.
Shalom, and follow you if you can follow some of the people on the panel. Also, I didn't already followed you. I'm already following you, but if there's anybody else, because we got a lot of instructors, and once again, thank you for the kind words and etc. Anybody else want to come up? Please do. But Joseph, I'm gonna go ahead and send this information, so I'm gonna let you run it real fast, bro. You got it.
All right, all right. Anybody else want to come on up and give any feedback, comments, concerns, anything, point of views? We're open. Give me 1 second. Let me check the chat. See if anybody put anything. Oh, good looking. Somebody else did that already. Cool. Guess not. All right. So, Sharp, you got anything you want to add, brother? Guess not. Officer Tony, anything you want to add, sir?
Shalom, family. To the entire room, I enjoyed the lesson as usual, but I don't have anything to add at this point in time. Let's keep up the good work that we're doing, fellas.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. So, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and have everybody pray with me real quick. Quick prayer never hurt anyone, right?
Well, hey, brother, you can if anybody gonna say anything, you can go ahead and pray us out, then, my brother.
I got something to say, brother.
Oh, okay. And what's your question or statement?
Please send a donation to your brother, brother. Don't be a heartless bastard. Don't be a fuckhead, bitch.
Yeah, that's
Why do we do that on the record?
Really? Really?
yeah,
Why do that on the record?
yeah. Well, see, what happens is I don't understand it, right? So he came up, he asked somebody to give him something, and then got vulgar. Like that's anyway. That just shows you who needs help, who really needs help, and what type of help they really need. Not the help they're asking for. They need a different type of help. So let's put an extra prayer out for that brother. Matter of fact, yeah, I'm gonna start my prayer off on him. Y'all ready? Our Father, the Most High, in the name of Christ, we have gathered to you today. We definitely appreciate the sister that was edified and is obtaining extra understanding of the foundation of your words and how it all seamlessly connects together. We're appreciative for her. We're appreciative to everyone that came in to listen, whether they stayed or left. We're appreciative that we have the platform to provide this information to whomever decides to listen now or later. We all here because we seek you and want to understand you and your word, and we want to walk in our purpose that you have aligned for us. I want to send out an extra prayer from brother, I believe it was Shahal or Shahal. May you please give him everything that he needs to get himself up and get himself right on his own so that he can be a man and be out here and take care of himself. Give him the drive that he needs to be edified by the word, which shall empower him to fend for himself and be a man. May he find a woman after he becomes the man that he should be and learn how to take care of a man as Christ has taken care of us. Please enlighten him, lift him up, empower him because he's in a lowly state at this moment and we do not wish for him to be there. In the name of Christ, we come unto you again. I love you very much. Amen.